Good morning, everyone. It is February the 11th, 2014. It is just briefly over 8 o'clock in the morning in Indianapolis. It is, we're on a rise. I think it's -3 now instead of -4, which it was earlier. Polled some people this morning already. Looks like Wisconsin, you get the prize this morning for being the coldest so far. They're talking about being in the -28-degree range. So lots of cold weather this morning. You guys in the South and working your way up the East Coast, please be safe out there. Pay attention to what's going on. I know that they're calling for an overnight some significant icing and snowing in areas that typically aren't used to it, down through Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, up through Georgia. I know yesterday those states declared a state of emergency already ahead of this. The governor of Georgia said that he vows to not happen this time what happened last time. You guys out there listening, I'm probably preaching to the choir on this one, but please stop allowing others to dictate what's safe for you out there. I know people were like, well, my boss wouldn't let me leave, or, the school didn't cancel. Screw those people. They don't have your best interest in heart. Get your kids out of school. Don't send them to school if you're still in the public school system. You choose what's best for you and your family. And don't let anybody else do that. It's your responsibility to stay safe. Nobody else is going to care. If something would happen to you today because of your decisions and allowing someone else to have that control over you, they're not going to care, unfortunately. So, please make those decisions wisely and keep your family's best interests at heart. You can replace a job that you would get fired from because you choose not to go to work that day, but you cannot replace a loved one that you would lose because they were killed in a storm like this. So please stay safe out there. I know this is working its way up the East Coast currently. So you guys up in Philadelphia, New York, all you guys up that way are expected, a lot of snow. So just get prepared ahead of time. Don't be one of those people stuck in the store at the last minute trying to find the last loaf of bread. It isn't going to work. I've seen some, again, those pictures in the news of people just scrambling to get, the toilet paper, the milk, and the bread last minute. So, exactly, Jimmy. You are the boss of you. So, promote yourself. Give yourself a raise. You're worth it. So, just stay safe. I know there's been some extreme weather around the world. I know in Japan, they were talking about the snow that just came through there. I think the last count I saw that 10 people had died. The flooding in Great Britain, it has just been unbelievable, where you see entire cities that are underwater. And, their storms that they're getting are based off of the storms that leave our shores. So you can just about imagine what's going on over there, once it gets riled up from the oceans. So just, stay safe out there. Pay attention to what's going on. It's not for lack of weather report. I can assure you of that. They've named every freaking storm that's coming through now, which is pissed. The Weather Channel has taken upon themselves to be the gods of the weather and, are naming these storms coming through. So, lots of chatter out there. Just pay attention to what's going on in your neck of the woods. And stay safe. So what else is going on in the news that we need to really pay attention to? Now, when I bring this stuff up, I want you to understand that what they put in the news isn't always what we need to be paying attention to. As they say in The Wizard of Oz, pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Because, you know what? There's a lot of stuff that gets unspoken or gets unreported out there. And if I can get my computer to work correctly, just some stuff that I want you to have a heads up to. Iran, for some reason, has grown bigger balls over the last few days and has decided to send some of its ships off of our maritime borders. Now, Iran would not typically do this on its own without the backing of some significant other countries out there, such as Russia. They've been talking a lot together lately. So, I know Russia was pissed off when we sent ships over for the Olympics because, it's not for lack of the United States press over here making fun of all the stuff that's going on in Russia with our delegates over there, pertaining to the Olympics and questioning whether or not they have the security. So, it gave us opportunity to take some ships over there. So, of course, them being the stinkers that they are, I'm sure have instigated Iran bringing ships this way. And that's off of our Atlantic coast. So, makes me always wonder what's going on our Pacific coast. So, questionable whether or not China has some ships over that way. So, just pay attention to what's going on. Always be prepared for no matter what happens, but don't be surprised when it does. Let's see. We are back in the peace talks in Geneva for Syria. So let's make sure that, we keep a heads up on that. Always has a tendency to go south if need be. Still lots of talks about what's going on with the Palestinians and with Israel. Back up real fast because, Iran yesterday did test fire a couple missiles, after they sent ships, over this way. They did, try to do a little posturing and fire a couple missiles. You can take it for whatever message that you want to being sent, but, just a lot of saber rattling going on right now. Beijing created some artificial snowstorms that caused a little havoc over there. Yes, I did say artificial because they have the technology to do that. And if you don't think that weather warfare is going on between our countries, please wake up and start digging into that. So just really pay attention, stay safe. Your best bet is to avoid the panic that's going on there. And, yes, I said panic because it does happen. So just stay prepared, be ahead of it, and, make sure that your family is prepared for it. It's been questioned over there, forever, whether your best option is to bug in or bug out. That's going to be entirely up to your situation in particular. If you were in a large city such as LA, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, your best bet might be to get the hell out of there if something would happen. You guys out in the suburbs, things like that, you're going to have to play it by ear. It's going to be your particular choice. But I know it's also been brought up too. You need to either have a place to go, or if you decide to just set out with no end result, no determined, place to go to, that's a bad idea. You need to have a plan in place. It's not as easy as a lot of people make it look like to be able to pick up a backpack, take your family, and walk out your door and try and survive for whatever it's coming. So just, think these things through. I know there's a lot of prepping places out there that are just giving all kinds of they like to sensationalize things. I know, shocking, right? But as with the weather reports in the South and keeping your family safe, it's your responsibility. And nobody's going to care except for you. And, the funny thing is, I had somebody I know was shot and killed just a week ago, a little over a week ago now. And, talking to the police, if you are looking at depending upon the police force to protect you, please wake up to that. This person was doing their job, earning a living, which seems to be rarer and rarer these days. But somebody walked up, wanted his vehicle, and shot and killed him. The detective informed us that, they thought it was just a drug-related homicide. So, they weren't in a hurry to figure out what's going on. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I understand that the police are out there and they're putting their lives in jeopardy every single day. but they also are there to just mainly do the cleanup for whatever happens. It's your responsibility to take care of your family. Know what your rights are. Know what you have available to you in order to protect yourself. My husband and I took a class over the weekend. There's no one thing that's going to protect your life. A lot of times we migrate to, oh my goodness, you need a gun. Well, you know what? Without proper training, you don't need a gun, because it's either going to be used against you or cause harm to someone you don't want it to be. So if you go that route, please get proper training on how to use it properly. And I'm not just talking about, just straight up NRA training. I'm talking about, force on force training, real life situation training, that kind of thing. And I could say that, I'm an instructor. So, I understand how we teach. We teach straight up, stand there, shoot down the range, kind of shooting. Is that real life? No. Somebody breaks into your house, you're not going to have time to make sure that you're, 15 yards away from them or 3 yards away from them, and you're all lined up and you're in your isosceles stance and, everything's perfect. It isn't going to happen. You're going to be shooting around, walls. You're going to be trying to make sure that your kids aren't running out of their bedroom, all those kinds of things. You could be laying on the ground. You could be sitting in your couch. Have you ever tried to shoot from those positions? There's a lot of good instructors out there that teach this kind of stuff. So please get out there and get some extra training. Don't just learn how to shooting downrange. If you're looking at this for self-protection, you need some real training out there. As part of our arsenal, if you want to call it that, our toolbox, as we've been referring to it as, additional training. We took a baton class and a pepper spray class, this past weekend. Do we need it? Will we ever use it? I hope not, quite honestly. But we got taught by a really nice guy, who happens to be a sergeant with the police force. So we went through, the training that, the police force here, they take. So, which was interesting, to say the least. It does bring a whole new respect for these guys out there. He did mention that a very small percentage of officers actually carry a baton, but he walked us through the proper way to use one, different stances, how to hit properly. Once I figured out which direction my hips needed to rotate, it made it easier. We did some punches, those kind of things with the baton itself. He had multiple batons there to show us which kinds might be, better for this, different sizes, how to carry them, that kind of stuff, which was awesome. And then we also did a pepper spray test. One thing that, I've learned here recently that takes the fear out of things is to actually go through it. So, pepper spray itself is not something to mess with. I did, one thing I'm going to experiment with this year is, to see, about maybe, I don't know if it's illegal or not. I don't think so, but, making my own form of, pepper spray. It's funny, my husband was talking about it, and of course pepper flakes was the original form of this way back when, and then they started to add other things to it, such as, different hot peppers and things like that. And yes, that's what it is. But my husband was talking about how they used to take an egg and, take the inside out, the yolk and the white out of the egg, just put a little hole in the shell. And then they would fill this up with the pepper or the hot pepper, juices and stuff like that. And they would throw these at people. This was, way before my time. But, I found that interesting. So it's like you sit there and your wheels start turning and it's like, I wonder if I could come up with some concoction, We did get to, test out the police, brand of pepper spray, which is a little different than what a civilian could purchase, which was interesting. So, definitely an interesting weekend for sure. Coming up, we are going to visit our friend Shay up at Mind Force Labs. Sorry, not Labs, Lab. And, take a combative flashlight class. You know, you can't always carry a firearm or a baton with you or whatnot. But most places, if you had a flashlight in your pocket, they're not going to say anything. Would be good for probably school. Don't get your child into trouble. But, some place where you normally wouldn't think. You know, one thing in the improvised weapons class that you had to think about was, you know, things that you could take with you that normally are not seen as a weapon that you might be able to utilize as a weapon or improvise really fast, such as we were talking about taking a nail file and a toothbrush. Two innocent things that you could take with you, but in the matter of, 30 to 45 seconds, you can easily combine the two and have some kind of shim to protect yourself with. So, yes, we are looking at doing a flashlight combatives class coming up, another baton class to get certified to teach in that. So this was a precursor to what's coming up, but we're going to look at taking that in Minnesota this summer. But just tools. They're just tools in our toolbox to keep us safe. We're not going to rely on any one thing, even though my husband absolutely is mortifiedly in love with firearms sometimes. He got himself a new Glock over the weekend because he couldn't stand that the rest of us had Glocks and he didn't, I think. But I did get to inherit his XDM, so, yay for me. So I have another firearm now too. But don't rely on any one thing. And, your best weapon is yourself. The more knowledge that you have, the more techniques, the more you can get your mind to actually start thinking outside the box and to prepare yourself for any situation, the better off, you are. And, when you learn stuff, teach your family. Keep everyone safe. But, the last week, let's get into this because I don't have a formal agenda today. Last week I had, talked about, my endeavor with our public school system here. So really fast, we've been struggling with the school here for a couple years now, and the fact that my son does miss a little more school than a normal child, even though his grades are fine and whatnot. But he has IBS, which is brought on by stress and tension. And, so, as per our school instructions, we visited the doctor and, got a note stating that yes, in fact, this is an issue and, to expect him to miss a little more school than normal. And don't forget, there are rules within the school. If certain things such as a fever or diarrhea happen, they will not allow your child to come back to school, whether you think they're fine or not. So we went to the doctor, got a note and all that loveliness, ended up, by the school standard, visiting a family probation officer and, took her the note also from the physician, the person trained to, determine whether or not, what's going on with your child. But, they still seemed fit to tell us that, they have rights over our children that obviously they don't think we do anymore as parents. And one of those was the fact they wanted to turn our rights over to them. And, they wanted the right to come in at any time and take blood, urine, or a breathalyzer from my child without my approval. So that was pretty much the last straw. So last Monday, a little over a week ago, we walked into the school system and it told them that we would be removing him from the school system itself. Little weird visit, but all in all, we walked out without too much hassle. And as I said last week, I came home, I sat in the driveway, and I had a few tears going on because and then you get pissed off because you realize not only is your child brainwashed is a strong term. You can use it if you want to, but I sat there and really was upset on how much I'd been programmed with the public school system. I have no one in my family that's ever homeschooled. So it was a foreign concept to me. I didn't understand it, so I did reach out to some people that are way more experienced than I am, and had conversations about the process itself. So it's been a week now, and no one has showed up at my house to remove my child from my custody, which I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but that's one of the feelings that I did have was, oh my goodness, I'm doing something wrong. It's sad when someone can make you feel like that for doing what you think is the best thing for your child. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some instances out there where it's very questionable the actions of parents. That's not what I'm talking about. I would like to think I'm not a bad parent, not a bad person, or anything like that. So I saw it that the school was doing more harm to my child than good, whether that be what they were teaching him or how they were treating him, or the disruptiveness that they were causing my family. So I chose to remove him from the situation. Again, no one has showed up at my house to remove him. Have gotten no letters from anyone stating that we're going to come take you away, or you're going to spend some time in jail because you're a bad parent because he's not in the public school system, which I think is great. So I took it upon myself to, we took a few days just to chill with the funeral with my friend going on and some other stuff. We just needed to chill, and just relax for a little bit. So, digging into what needs to happen, I came up upon a series of information, books, whatnot, about unschooling, which I find quite fascinating. Several different books I'm going through right now. I'm not a read one book at a time kind of a person. I usually have 5 or 6 books that I'm going through at any one given time. And then I will admit 100% I have issues. I am a severe book whore. My husband spends most of his free time building bookshelves for me. I will admit that. But, on the flip side, I think of this as extra insulation on the walls in the wintertime. Hey, sounds legit to me. Or if somebody decides to shoot a gun through my house, hey, there's extra stopping power there. That's how I've convinced myself, it's okay. So, but, a series of books called The Unschooling. And I need this, quite honestly, as much as my child does. It's a weird feeling, to be honest, about not having your child in school. He used to leave at 7 o'clock and he'd get home around 3 o'clock. So to know that you can actually, learn and teach your child things all day long and on the weekends and whatever you want to, it's a whole new foreign concept, but one that is quite exciting. Connor, my son, and I sat down over the weekend, and we talked about all the things that actually interest him, as opposed to just being forced a curriculum upon him. What really excited him. And just within a week, this child walks up to me, or up to his father, and he goes, "What can I learn today? What are we doing today?" Because now, instead of being force-fed something he could care less about or doesn't understand, he's excited about learning, which I find quite fascinating that it happened that fast, within a week. So, we sat down, we probably talked till 2 o'clock in the morning the other night, talking about different things that we can do, different learnings that he can go through. We'll be going to Florida here soon, for business for me. And, we talked about what we can do along the way, what we can do when we're there. And he's like, this is considered school. It's like, Connor, if you went to a public school system within the building, you would only be reading about things in a book. You might be reading about alligators or crocodiles, the differences or whatever in a book. I said, we'll go to Florida and we'll actually see the differences. And he thought that was just awesome. So I am very, very excited about this new endeavor that we're on. I think it's going to be quite fascinating. And I'm excited too because, there's a lot of stuff, and I'll say this, over the years that I've forgotten. So it's going to be great, I think, to get back out there and to relearn stuff. So I wanted to read something here that was in a book that I got about unschooling. It's called The Unschooling Handbook, and it's by Mary Griffith. And it talks about how can it possibly work and what it is. So let's go into this. So I get you to understand, because there's a difference between homeschooling and unschooling, just like there's a difference between everything else. But she goes into, imagine two students, each about 15 years old, seated at a table working on geometry problems. They are both using paper and pencil, perhaps a ruler and compass, and the same textbook. To all outward appearances, each is doing exactly the same thing as the other. But one is an unschooler and the other is conventionally schooled. What's the difference? To understand that difference, we need to look at the rest of these kids' lives and how they spend the bulk of their time, why they are working on geometry, and what they will do next and why. Our school student, let's call her Cynthia, is pretty easy to understand since most of us went through roughly the same process when we were teens. Cynthia is enrolled in the local public high school, and geometry is one of the courses she signed up for last year. Most of the colleges she's considering attending recommend at least 2 and preferably 3 or even 4 years of mathematics at the high school level. Those problems she's working on were assigned by her teacher this morning, and though she enjoys geometry and could easily spend a couple more hours playing around with angles and lines, she doesn't really have the time. She has to read a chapter in her world history textbook for tomorrow, and then she'll work on an English paper that's due by the end of the week. Next year, Cynthia will take another math course at her school, probably at Algebra 2 Trigonometry Combination. Then we look at Kathleen. She's our unschooler. Has never been to a public school. Early last spring, when she helped her parents build some raised beds for their vegetable garden, she was intrigued when they measured the box diagonals to check that the corners were square. She asked lots of questions about angles and shapes while they worked together. Over the next few weeks, she began looking seriously into learning more about geometry. After a few more rambling conversations and a few trips to the library and local bookstores with her mother, she finally decided to use a textbook to dig into the topic formally. Over the past 4 or 5 weeks, she has worked on geometry fairly often, sometimes even several hours each day. Sometimes for only a few minutes, a couple times a week, between her dance lessons and the latest science fiction novel she's reading. She rarely completes a full problem set, opting to go on to the next concept as soon as she grasps an idea. Her brothers are getting heartily sick of her frequent geometry mini lectures every time they get out their Lego blocks, but they grudgingly admit she's been building some amazingly complex designs lately, even though they really think she's too old to play with building toys. Kathleen has seen hints of the existence of geometrics in her textbooks, and she's begun to look for a good instruction to topology. Her dad has offered to check around among some of his more mathematically inclined friends to see if anyone might be interested in working with her. Unschooling is basically a matter of attitude and approach. Simply put, unschooling puts the learner in charge. As one California mother puts it, unschooling to me means learning what one wants, when one wants, in the way one wants, where one wants, for one's own reasons. The learning is learner-directed. Advisors or facilitators are sought out as desired by the learner. There is no curricula, lesson plans, schedules, or agendas. Most of the learning is quiet, even invisible, as there is not a focus on creating a lot of products. I thought that was awesome. And like I said, within 1 week, now my child, you have to understand, it was getting to the point that my child absolutely hated to go to school, which is horrid to me because I have such a thirst for knowledge and learning things all the time that I could not understand not sending my child to some kind of formal education. Within a week, he was walking up to us and asking what he could learn next. Because now the focus is on him instead of passing a class or a test score or something along that line. If you don't know who Matt Walsh is, excuse me, let me see if I can find him here real fast. Look up who Matt Walsh is. He's an awesome guy. He does a lot of awesome writing. And one of his latest blogs talks about your 5-year-old failed a standardized test. Therefore, he is stupid, insane, and doomed to a life of failure. It goes on to say, I'm going to grab you by the hand and drag you into hell. I'm going to immerse you in a nightmare so hideous and horrifying that it will leave you stunned and gasping for breath. Are you ready? All right. Imagine a terrifying world where 4 and 5-year-old children are allowed to play, explore, and dream. Imagine where all young kids roll in the grass and get mud on their pants. Imagine what would happen if small children were constantly being measured and analyzed. Imagine an utter and complete absence of overarching academic standards for kids that are barely older than toddlers. Imagine the torment of a country that does not provide government facilities to which its citizens can send their tots for curriculum-based instruction. Imagine another world where innocent little kids aren't tested or scored or compared to the performance of other kids all over the globe. Imagine, just imagine, a purgatory where your 4-year-old develops on his own time and isn't hurried along so that he might meet broad milestones and performance standards. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine a reality where our youngest sons and daughters don't emerge from the womb only to be immediately placed in an even more restrictive and confining box? A box will imprison them for the next 13 or 14 years of their lives. Scary, isn't it? Twist ending. This is the world in which everyone lived, up until very recently. Somehow, for thousands of years, kids learned and grew and matured, and they did so without modern public schools. The ancient Greeks produced some of the most brilliant minds in human history, and with nary a pre-K or a "this is what your kids should be doing at this age" parenting book. Against all odds, the greatest civilizations of the past, whether Roman or Byzantine or Ottoman or Persian, all managed to contribute immensely to the progress of man without the help of Common Core or standardized tests. How did they do it? There must have been some sort of ancient sorcery at work. How else can it be explained? I can certainly tell you that I wept when I read this recent op-ed in an Oregon newspaper. A couple of concerned bureaucrats report the sobering epidemic of kindergarteners underperforming on standardized tests. Apparently, what these youngsters need is for the government schools to be more coordinated and aggressive in seeing to it that they reach the arbitrary academic milestones imposed upon them by the Department of Education. But this tragic story is not confined to Oregon alone. Other states are in the midst of a similar crisis. Oh my goodness. Indeed, across the country, millions of children, kindergartners and older, are falling behind and failing to learn at the exact rate and pace required, yes, I just said required, by the government. It isn't just that these individual children are doomed, though they certainly are. It's that we will all be facing the apocalypse if our kids don't learn to test better. Remember, it isn't good enough that your children learn to read or add or write. She must do it now. If not now, then when? Next year? For God's sake, are you mad? By then, it will be too late. Think of her college application. For goodness sakes, quick. Suck the fun out of her existence, eradicate her enthusiasm for learning, tie her to a chair, and force her to fill out multiple choice questions. She must meet the standards so that her school gets more federal fun, so that she will grow up to be a successful and well-adjusted person. Let me explain something about human beings. We are all exactly the same. Our minds are programmable computers assembled in factories and implanted into our heads. Our children, therefore, can be expected to do everything the same way, learn the same way, act the same way, grow the same way, develop the same way. If they don't, then this is evidence of a system's malfunction. No worries. Stuffing full of drugs until he sufficiently measures up to the universal preconceived notions of how he is supposed to think and behave. Some foolish Neanderthals, like this woman at the Washington Post, question the wisdom of testing kindergartners and holding them to a state-prescribed standards. But these people are anti-education extremists. They wish to return us to the Dark Ages, before government kindergarten and pre-K, back when children, deprived of the guiding light of standardized education, quickly descended into psychosis and cannibalism. Fear not. These anarchists are fighting a losing battle. These are the unhinged types who conceive children and then don't even have the foresight to run to Barnes & Noble and purchase a bunch of parenting books instructing them on how their baby should crawl or walk or eat solid foods. The barbarians. They may wish to retain an ounce of freedom and creativity in their own chaotic households, but out there in civilized society, we are moving past them. In fact, President Obama gave his State of the Union address last week and once again reiterated his call for universal pre-K. Now this is good. Well, no, it doesn't. Yes, Mr. President, we must get the children away from their parents as soon as possible. It is not enough for pre-K to be universal. It must be mandatory. But why stop there? I call for mandatory universal pre-K, which will be the next step after pre-K, which would come right after a baby graduates from mandatory universal nursery instruction. If our children are to compete with the Chinese, surely competing with Asian kids thousands of miles away must be the innate desire of all young Americans, then we should stop wasting time. I say, let's administer the first standardized test within 5 minutes of birth. That is, until the Russians give standardized tests to 1-minute-year-olds. Hurry! No time to waste. If your sons and daughters are to be obedient and useful cogs in the assembly line of modern society, we have to begin molding them for our purpose as soon as, or even before, they take their first breath. Maybe, if we keep at it, if we work hard enough, we can create a country where children are no longer troubled with stresses of being creative and imaginative, where they don't engage in silly things like art, sports, music, where they have no sense of wonderment, no humor or curiosity, where they can all simply sit still and regurgitate pieces of information onto sheets of paper. A world where, essentially, that loathsome and inconvenient institution called childhood no longer exists in any discernible fashion. Call me a dreamer if you like. I suppose I am. And that's only because I don't spend enough time taking standardized tests in kindergarten. If you don't know who Matt Walsh is, hook up, get to know him. I absolutely love this man. But, I think, he is, always a plethora of information. But he pretty much hits it on the head. The state is only after your child for a reason. The school is only after your child for a reason. Yeah, granted, there are some good teachers out there and whatnot. But, when it comes down to it, the school is out there to get money every time your child sits his cute little derriere in a chair. And when your child isn't sitting his cute little derriere in a chair, then they don't get those funds from the state. The state is after, in my opinion, to make our children drones, to not think for themselves, to become sheeple. Yeah, that S word that as a prepper that we all talk about. Those people that are out there last minute, in a panic, trying to get their bread and milk and toilet paper. Don't allow them to get to your children. Now, granted, we have 5 other kids. Never had a problem with the first 4. Now, our oldest is 24, so he's been out of school for a while. It's a different system back then. Things have changed, and things are changing rapidly. If you're not involved in what's going on in your child's school, then please wake up. And get involved. Find out what's going on. I did a poll last night, just a quick one, in my my coop with my coop girls. Shout out to them. They're an awesome bunch of girls, women, I should say. But there's over 800 women that I have in a group, and we just bounce ideas off of each other all the time, support each other, and all of that. We try and, no offense, guys, but, we try and keep it all just women so that way we can talk openly about menopause and, our period, menses and childbirth and stuff like that. And then we can share the information outwards as we see. But, so I asked them last night if anyone else was having problems with their local school. Whether it was a Common Core issue, which is just, in my opinion, pure evilness, or the school just overstepping their bounds and their rights and trying to assume responsibility of your child. And I got quite a few hits. And mind you, I just posted this 8 hours ago. It was just before I went to bed last night. And so little startling that there is that much going on around the country. But again, I cannot stress it enough. Don't just send your child out the front door assuming that school has the best interest of your child in their hearts, because they don't. They might have some good teachers, but you roll it all up and it isn't going to happen. It's your responsibility. If you had enough responsibility to have that child, it's your responsibility to make sure that that child is protected and has the education that they deserve. Times have changed. The grade school that I grew up with in Ohio, a a lot of the lunch ladies and stuff were my aunts and friends of the family. And, my graduating class only had 27 kids in it. So I knew every single kid in my class. I knew their aunts, their uncles, their brothers, their sisters, their grandparents. It was a small community school out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. When my daughter graduated, just 2 years ago, she had hundreds of kids in her class. Kids were walking up to her in their cap and gowns. She had no idea who they even were. There were teachers there that, because of the subject she took, that she didn't know. Our kids are being herded into classrooms. They're being overlooked. They're being judged according to a set of standards that, in my opinion, is not fair. And when I pulled my child out of that atmosphere, his thirst, his love for learning has reappeared, and fast. I mean, we're talking, it'll be 8 days today that he's been out of the school. How many teachers out there teach nowadays to what your child is interested in, as opposed to what they have to teach because what they're told to teach? Most of them are. Most of them do not have much of a say over the curriculum that they teach or how they teach it. My son brought homework this past year and math problems, and he returned his papers with correct answers because as a parent we checked his homework, but he turned the papers in with the correct answer and they marked them all wrong because he did not figure out the problem exactly the way that the teacher wanted them to. He did not follow the exact steps. I find that completely absurd. Our child has no free thinking ability. They can't come up to a different solution. How would this world progress without people that learn how to think out of the box, that have ideas, that have dreams? How many of your children that are still in public school are losing their dreams? Are being forced to learn how to act like good little citizens? Please look at your situation. Look at how your school acts. Look at how your teachers act. Look at what's in the best interest of your child. And do what you think is necessary to protect your child. I work a full-time and a half job. So, that was always my excuse in the past. I work 7 days a week and all day long. And, when would I be able to have a room in my house that I could set up for a school, and what curriculum would I need? And, it was excuse after excuse after excuse. How much did they have to push you in order you take your child back? Does it come down to, like it did for me, where they requested that I sign my rights away as his parent and allow them to take blood or urine or do a breathalyzer anytime that they felt like? Don't let it get that far. One thing I've learned over the last few weeks, talking to different people that homeschool, their biggest regret isn't about not having a room in the house set up for homeschooling. It's not about, they should have used this curriculum versus that curriculum or, anything like that. The biggest regret I've heard consistently is the fact that they didn't do it sooner. And quite honestly, that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's only been a week now, mind you. So we'll see how it plays out. But I cannot tell you how it makes my heart feel good when my child is getting back his thirst to learn things. Because we're actually looking at what he likes. He wants to learn. This is kind of messed up, but, we've been having some sewer issues in our house with the cold weather. So my husband, climbed underneath the house yesterday and was looking at the pipes and whatnot because, the one downstairs bathroom is having issues. And, so we've got it all quarantined off and nobody's allowed to use it. So my husband was under the house, in the crawl space doing, his thing down there. And Connor was like, saying things about it. And it's like, well, climb down underneath there. Go down there with your dad and check it out. Check the pipes out. See what you see. And I think that's the biggest thing that, I'm looking forward to. And we've talked about is the fact that instead of reading about things in a book, like, plumbing or whatever it is, we can actually go experience things firsthand. Instead of, my husband and I went to Utah this past year. And we've seen the pictures of the Rocky Mountains before in the books. And I've never in my life, my young life, have been past the Mississippi River. So I was quite excited. And you can ask my husband, he slept most of the way. But he thought I was a weirdo freak kind of person when we were going through, I think it was Nebraska or Kansas, whichever one was compatible to our gun laws. And, there's nothing. There is absolutely nothing but flatness. There's no trees. There's some rolling hills, but it's pretty much flat and you can see for miles. And he wakes up and I'm just in the happiest mood. I'm singing with the radio, and he wakes up and it's like, check this out. It's just gorgeous, and he thinks I've just totally lost my rocker, and then, you get into Colorado and you see the Rocky Mountains for the first time and it is absolutely breathtaking. And then you get up on the top of them after you scare the shit out of yourself driving up there, because I experienced a little bit of altitude issues, up above, Denver, cause we went up through Wyoming that way. And he was making fun of me cause I'm like, Eddie, really pay attention to me cause I'm the one driving here and I'm not feeling real well. So you get up on top of the Rocky Mountains and I don't care what pictures you've seen in a book. If you haven't experienced life firsthand, just shut up. Just back up, shut the door, and go away. Because it's like freaking driving across the moon. I mean, there's just nothing. But it's spectacular. It is absolutely breathtaking, and you cannot justify it in pictures in a book. I'm looking forward to getting my child out and doing some traveling this next year. And it's funny because my husband was like, what is that song? We were in Wyoming getting ready to come down into, Utah. And, he's like, what's that song? Purple Mountain Majesties. I don't see any purple anywhere. And it's funny, we came up over the next hill and by golly, it was a Godsmack and the mountains were actually purple. These songs that are out there that you were like, what the hell are they talking about? You actually get out there and live life. It's real. The mountains, I'm telling you, in Wyoming and Utah are purple with certain times when the sun's shining on them and just speechless. You can't learn that stuff sitting in a room reading it out of a book. You can't experience, you can read all you want to about altitude sickness, but I'll be damned if you're going to forget about it once you experience it because the mouthiness that my husband gave me on the way up the mountains, he experienced on the way down the mountains. And I did honestly get a giggle out of that one because, it's like just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You'll be fine. But he's like, that was real. You weren't making that up. It's like, no, dear, I don't make stuff up like that. And he goes, you could have passed out while we were driving. Yes, I could have very well passed out while we were driving. That's why I told you, pay attention. Bless his little heart. But look at stuff, evaluate where you're at with your kids. Because, stuff like that, they just need to experience firsthand. They need to go to one of those alligator farms in Florida and see the difference between a crocodile and an alligator firsthand. They need to get on an airboat in the middle of the night and go alligator hunting. Okay, maybe not, but I do. I seriously do. I need to get on an airboat in the middle of the night and go look for beady little red eyes in the night. Yes, that's on my agenda. But this stuff is irreplaceable. This stuff your children will not forget. To me, it seems like when you're homeschooling, you're building memories with your kids that now you're a part of. Just in the short week that we've been doing this, the amount of conversation that I've had with my child has been phenomenal. Before your child would come home from school and they want to pass out in a corner somewhere. They want to talk to no one. They just want to go play video games or watch cartoons or whatever they do. I get to talk with my child now more and more and actually get to know my child much better than when I shipped him off to school. I cannot express enough how much I'm looking forward to what we have coming up in the future. My husband wants to go scuba diving. We can learn about that. We can prep him ahead of time, lay some groundwork in there. But now we get to go experience life because we don't have to be home at 3:00 every day to make sure he gets off the bus and gets in the house. We can just take him with us wherever we go. I look forward to this. Hey, tonight, don't forget we have After Dark at 11 o'clock. You guys have a great day and I will see you then.